Hi, this is Mike Wheeler again. This is part five of Charlie's story. I hope you've enjoyed listening to the first four parts. This part is entitled Willie's Creek, a ministry of presence.
Dad's Truck, September 21st, 2017, Thursday. Dave Christian was a rugged man with calloused hands and a dark-tanned, weather-beaten face that defined an old-school rancher. His wife Gina died in 1965, leaving him a single father to raise his 5-year-old son, Charlie, and his 7-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. Lizzie was married shortly after high school and was now living with her husband in Atlanta. Charlie and Lizzie rarely saw each other in person over the years, but tried to stay in touch through greeting cards and an occasional phone call. Dave didn't have many hobbies, but he greatly enjoyed tinkering with old cars. Charlie did not share his dad's passion, but he loved being his daddy's helper. Dave was in his mid-50s when cancer took his life in 1992. One of the things he loved for Charlie was a 1972 Ford F-100 pickup truck. It was red over white, and Dave added a 4-speed transmission with a Muncie shifter, chrome reverse rims, thrush glass pack mufflers, and it was simply fun to drive. Charlie had worked all morning, but the heat and sweat had begun to aggravate the itch from the lesions on his skin. As he sat under an old oak tree near the house, his eyes fell on the shed that protected his dad's old truck. Claire had just returned home from the real estate office where she had been working part-time. Charlie stepped into the doorway of their home. "Claire, I'm having a rough time this afternoon. I think I'm going to take Dad's truck out for a ride. Do you want to come?" "No, sweetheart. I have some things to do here." Claire declined the invitation. "You just enjoy yourself, and I'll see you in a couple of hours." Charlie had the window down as he drove through the farms and fields of the Flint Hills region of Kansas. There were ranches like his, and there were large golden fields of wheat that shimmered in the late summer sun and winds that often swept the area. They were indeed the golden waves of grain that Catherine Lee Bates had in mind when she wrote America the Beautiful. In Charlie's mind, he could clearly hear Ray Charles as he interpreted that song. "Lord," Charlie prayed out loud, "this is truly a picture of your creative majesty. On days when I can witness your creation like this, I am so amazed at your glory. You are truly amazing. And yet, over the past 8.5 years, my personal life has gone through so much. I struggle so much with my faith. I fight to silence the doubts that often cloud my mind. I am confident and thankful, while I am fearful, angry, and discouraged, all at the same time." At that point, Charlie decided to turn his dad's old truck back towards Shiloh. He was trying to ignore the itching and burning skin for just a little while longer, but his time of respite was running out. He needed to get back home and apply the cream salve that his doctor had given him to cool the pain. Charlie pulled under the old oak tree next to the house. "I'll get this itch under control, and then I'll come back out and put the truck back in the garage." As he allowed the medication to take its course, Charlie allowed himself to drift off in an afternoon nap. When Claire walked into the living room and saw him slumped over on the sofa, she quietly repositioned Charlie, slipping a pillow under his head. She smiled as she kissed her husband on the forehead and whispered, "I love you so much." It was after 9 o'clock when Charlie woke up from his nap. He had forgotten all about the truck. The next morning, as Claire got up to get ready for work, Charlie slipped into the kitchen to put on a pot of coffee. When he looked out the window and saw the limb lying across the hood and windshield of the truck, he realized his mistake. "You stupid, irresponsible idiot," he said to himself. His voice got louder, and he turned from pain to anger as his fist, intended for the door, found its way to the glass instead. In his rage, Charlie could not feel the pain. Charlie cried out and slid to the floor, cupping his face as he went down. By the time Claire reached her husband, the lacerations on his right hand and forearm were covered with blood. It was another trial in a growing list of other trials that Charlie had faced over the past 8.5 years. It was just a truck, but it carried precious memories of Charlie and his father. The hand and the arm would require stitches. The window in the truck could be repaired, but in Charlie's mind, it was just the next thing. Ministry of Presence. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came, each from his own place: Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, the Shuhite, and Zophar, the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. And they raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads toward heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was great. Job, 2nd chapter, 11th through the 13th verses. Homecoming, 2017. September 22nd, 2017, Friday. As Charlie walked into the house late Friday afternoon, Claire greeted him at the door. "Honey, you are not going to believe who just called." Charlie's hand was still bandaged, and the itch was still pretty intense. His response was less than enthusiastic. "I give up." "Who?" "It was Billy Schumann, one of your old high school friends," Claire responded. Charlie managed to smile. "So what's old Billy up to these days?" "He said that he will be coming into town for the homecoming game in a couple of weeks. Several of the guys are getting together. He mentioned Zach, Elliot, and a couple of others. It might do you well to get with them. What do you think?" "Claire, this is just not a good time for me. Under different circumstances, I might enjoy yucking it up about old times. I haven't seen him in years." Charlie was defeated. The game was scheduled for Friday, October 6th. Charlie never returned the call, but on the morning of the game, a black GMC Yukon pulled up to the house, and Charlie's 3 high school friends stepped out. When Charlie stepped out onto the porch, it was clear that they were surprised at his appearance. "Charlie?" Elliot was the first to speak. Charlie was almost unrecognizable. The swelling from his disease affected his facial appearance. The lesions were impossible to hide, and he was still sporting a bandage around his right arm and hand. "Not what you were expecting?" Charlie responded with unmistakable sarcasm. "I'm sorry, guys. I'm really not in the right frame of mind for a reunion. Still, it is good to see you. So why don't you come on in and visit me for a bit?" "When we spoke to Claire a couple of weeks ago," Billy began, "she said you had been going through some trials." 3,114 days. But who's counting?" Charlie interrupted. "That's when all of this started. Look, Billy, I'm really sorry. I'm just not in the mood to go over the past few years." "So Claire said you were in town for the game tonight," Charlie continued. "What have you guys been doing with yourselves over the last several years? Zach, are you still teaching down at UT?" "I'm still there," Jack answered. After high school, Zachary Naaman went to the University of Texas to pursue a degree in economics. After graduation, he stayed in Austin and was now on the faculty. In fact, those crazy people down in Austin have me working as an associate dean in the School of Business. Kind of hard to believe, huh? "Nah, you were always the smart one in the bunch," Charlie replied. "What about you, Elliot?" Charlie turned his attention to Elliot Tiemann. "You still married to Lisa?" "Lisa and I split up a good while back. I guess I'm just not the ideal husband for anybody. The real estate market is really active in Tulsa now, so I stay pretty active," Elliot responded. Billy tried to change the conversation. "Look, Charlie, we are going to be in town through Tuesday. Why don't you come to the game with us tonight? Tomorrow we can go out to Willie's Creek and try to scare up some smallmouth bass. We can talk some more then. Guys, I'm just not able to go to the game tonight. I'm also not really up to talking about my problems right now. You guys enjoy the game, and I will think about the fishing offer. Charlie's response was sincere, but left no room for debate. Fair enough, Charlie, Billy answered. We don't want to push, but you and I go all the way back to grammar school together. We haven't kept in touch like we should, but that doesn't mean we're no longer friends. I know, Billy, Charlie answered. I feel the same way. It's just bad timing for me, that's all. As his old friends pulled away from the house, Claire came up behind Charlie and put her arms around his waist. You know, Charlie, it might lift your spirits just to get together with them and talk about old times. At that, Charlie placed a call to Billy. Hey, Billy, my bride is giving me a kitchen pass for the weekend. I will call Stan Rivers and make sure it's okay for us to use his fishing camp. Do you guys want to pick me up around 6 o'clock tomorrow morning? Okay, I'll see you then. Willie's Creek, October 7th, 2017, Saturday. Stan Rivers owned a large piece of property that borders Willie's Creek. Years ago, Charlie and a few other friends had helped him construct a fishing camp, which was not much more than a small one-room wooden shack. There was no electricity, and the only water in the place came from a small pump on the side of the shack. Willie's Creek is a small tributary of the Kansas River, known as the KAW by the locals, and is located just outside the town of St. George, Kansas. It is a 20-minute drive from Charlie's ranch. Stan's fishing camp was secluded and afforded a quiet spot to relax and get away from the stresses of everyday life. Charlie was struggling with the itching lesions this morning. Although he had not done much fishing in the past few years, Stan's camp was a place where he often took Jesse and Caleb to fish. It was also a place where he, Cody, and Eli Hawks had frequently come to fish. This camp held memories for Charlie. Some were bittersweet. The four men decided to take 2 vehicles to the camp. Charlie and Elliot took Charlie's F-100 with Bandit in the center of the truck's bench seat. Billy and Zach followed in the rented SUV. Willie's Creek is known for its abundance of smallmouth bass, bluegill, catfish, and a few other types of fish. It was also home to an abundance of rainbow trout during the colder months of the year. When they arrived at the camp, they found the cabin dusty and inhabited by cobwebs and bugs. In other words, it was just as they expected it to be. It was late morning by the time they swept out the old bunkhouse and set up camp. Stepping down to the creek bank, all 4 men put a line in the water. The conversation revolved around last night's football game. You know, this team is pretty good, Zach began. They were undefeated, 5-0 going into last night. You couldn't tell it last night, Elliot responded. We got hammered by Silver Lake. We just got whipped by a better team, Billy chimed in. Silver Lake was also undefeated. They nearly won the state championship last year, and they scored 81 points in their first game this year. Charlie, we wish you had been there last night, Zach offered. They brought a bunch of us old guys out to Mill Field to honor our 1977 playoff season. A few of them looked like they could still play. Yeah, but did you get a look at Jerry Spears? Elliot countered. He has gained so much weight. No one would have suspected that he was the quarterback of a 9-0 football team that went to the playoffs. Everyone laughed. We really had a good team, Charlie spoke up. There's no way we should have lost to Goodland in the playoffs. 3 fumbles in the first quarter? Elliot laughed. We just didn't have it together that night. As the afternoon wore on, Charlie was feeling the effects of the heat and took a seat beneath the cottonwood tree nearby. Elliot walked over and sat down by Charlie. Are you up for some company? Sure, Charlie quietly responded. I appreciate you guys coming out. I'm really trying. I just don't have the strength and stamina that I used to have. Charlie, I know we promised not to bug you about what you're going through, Elliot offered, but sometimes it helps to talk. I won't push, but I am willing to listen. I know, El, Charlie answered. You guys took the time to take me out here. I would try to give you the Cliff's Notes version of my story to bring you up to speed tonight. As the evening began to roll in, Charlie turned to Zach. Hey, man, Claire packed us some steaks to grill. I'm not in shape to cook. Do you mind? Steaks? Zach answered. You could have just gotten by with hot dogs and hamburgers. You do realize that I have a ranch, don't you? We are struggling to build it back, but I still love a good KC strip. Charlie chuckled. Zach laughed. I guess I lost my bearings. I also forgot that we don't eat New York strips in Kansas. Charlie and Zach cleaned up the old stone fireplace and grill and began preparations for cooking the steaks. Claire had prepared a salad for the men. Their feast included baked potatoes that were cooked in the hot coals of the campfire and fresh roasted corn. Okay, guys, for better or worse, Charlie has appointed me chef for the night, Zach announced. I can't make any promises, but how do you like your steaks? Moo! Elliot spoke up first. Make mine rare. If a good vet can't save it, it's overcooked. Everyone laughed. Medium rare for me, Charlie answered. And Zach answered. That's how I like mine, too. Billy spoke up last. I'll take mine medium well. Surely not, Elliot chided him. We'll be cooking all night. Why don't you take off your boot and let me warm it up? The others laughed. Laugh all you want, Billy shot back. But 25 years in the Navy taught me that there's no such thing as cook to order. You get what you get, and you're thankful for it. And steaks were never as good as the ones you have in Kansas. 25 years? Charlie responded. I guess I didn't realize you had been in the service that long. Is that where you met Sherry? I met her in San Diego, Billy answered. She had lived there all of her life, so that's where we got married, and that's where we have made it our home. Do you still have your old Yamaha? Zach asked, referring to Billy's old dirt bike. Lord, no, Billy answered. I sold that old Yamaha 360 MX years ago. That bike could take anything you could give to her. It's a wonder we all survived back then. I did break down and buy myself a Harley Softail a few years back. What about you guys? Sweet ride, Elliot responded. I gave up riding years ago, but there are times when I still miss riding that old Suzuki through the pits. We were all crazy back then. What about you, Charlie? Elliot continued. What did you do with your old Yamaha TT500? That was a good-looking bike. I held on to that bike for a long time. I still took her out for a ride on the ranch sometimes, but Charlie hesitated. It was in the barn when he had the fire. We lost a lot that night. After dinner, the three men sat by the fire and shared old stories from their football playing days at Wamego High. They talked about their old teachers and high school friends. They were still sitting by the fire around 11:30 when Zach whispered to Charlie, Hey, Charlie, take a look at El. He's sound asleep. I guess this is a good time to call it a night, Charlie answered. We need to get an early start tomorrow. Painful Futility. October 8th, 2017. Sunday. Willie's Creek. Charlie had been awake since 4 o'clock a.m. To avoid waking the others, he decided to find a place to sit down by the water. His pain had intensified during the night, and the itch was taking its toll. Charlie felt the swelling in his joints, and as he choked back the tears, he whispered a prayer. Lord, you have left me with 5 young children who needed their mom and dad, and yet here I am, so weak I can't even play with them, let alone protect them the way they deserve. Isn't it enough that I've buried my children and the men who work with me on the ranch? God, you know I've always been a fighter. I don't give up very easily. Is there a message in all of this? I've truly reached the limits of my faith and my ability to endure. Right now, I wish you would go back in time and erase the day that I was ever born. Charlie clenched his teeth and fought with all of his strength to avoid screaming those words for all to hear. His words were muffled by the weakness in his breath, but he felt the passion taking control of his spirit. As he sat there in his grief and pain, Charlie felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Elliot. Do you mind if I sit with you, Charlie? Of course. Charlie was surprised by his own ability to control his response. I'm just having one of my pity parties. I'm sorry I woke you up. You didn't wake me up. Elliot comforted him. I just wanted to sit with you. I'm here to listen, but only if you want me to. I can't take away the pain, but I do care. There's nothing you can do, Charlie answered, unless you can get into a time machine and destroy the day I was born. My life has no meaning or purpose. Every day is nothing more than a mindless struggle for survival. If I could have died at birth, I would have been at ease. I would have been at rest and free of my struggles. The grave holds the rich and the poor, the wicked and the good, and the great and small. There are no kings or slaves there. Why does God give light to a man in misery? He won't let me die, even if he listens to my cries for help. God has built a hedge around me, and it feels like a prison from which there is no escape, even as my groanings are poured out like water. Elliot, there is no part of me that is at ease. I have found no rest, but trouble continues to come. Elliot was nearly speechless. I have no real words of comfort for you. I have no answers. I can't even imagine the amount of pain you are in. Did you know, Charlie continued, there was a time when I was a respected leader in our church. I taught in adult Sunday school on a regular basis. I was on the missions board and I had just begun serving as an elder. All of that has changed over the past few years. I don't understand, Elliot asked. Why would that change with the hardships you've experienced? In the first place, Charlie answered, there are people who mean well at first. They sincerely want to help. But over time, they run out of things to say. They don't want to face the reality of having no answers, so they start getting uncomfortable around you and start avoiding you. But the church? Elliot interrupted. There was a questionable incident a couple of years ago, Charlie began. I got involved with a fundraiser for a nonprofit organization. I should have done a better job of checking them out. Anyway, after the fundraiser, the president of the organization was caught misappropriating the funds. When the investigation started, they brought me in for questioning because someone told them about our personal financial problems. So they just assumed that you probably stole the money? Elliot was perplexed. Not really, Charlie answered. They were just doing their job. It didn't take them long to clear my name. In the meantime, some of the members of the church thought it would be best for me to step down and avoid being a stumbling block to other members who might not understand the details. So you agreed with them? Elliot persisted. I really did, and still do, Charlie answered. It still hurts when people spread rumors and gossip. I was hoping that God would clear it up and allow me to go back to where I was before. I tried to do the right thing, but my prayers to restore my reputation have gone unanswered, and that really hurts. Charlie, Elliot continued, Billy, Zach, and I came here to listen. You will certainly have our prayers, but none of us are qualified to take away your suffering. But I hope you know that we are available to talk. Please allow us to serve that purpose. As the morning light cast its rays across the landscape, Billy and Zach emerged from the bunkhouse. Elliot, I'm sorry for whining. Charlie put his hand on his friend's arm. Give me a minute to pull myself together, and I will help you guys pack up. Your willingness to listen to me really means a lot. Billy met Elliot halfway up the trail from the river. He's hurting pretty badly, isn't he? I think it's far worse than we understand, Elliot answered. Let's give him a few minutes. We can talk later. Charlie regained his composure and did his best not to show the pain he was feeling. In fact, he had become quite adept at putting on a show for others in order to hide his true feelings. That was his little white lie. His friends had never seen him this low, and he didn't want to leave them feeling helpless. He also knew that, given the depth of his pain, there was a good chance he would soon be spending another night in the hospital. After breakfast, the men packed up and headed back to Shiloh. As they prepared to return to their respective homes, Billy spoke for the others. Charlie, I don't know if we were of any help to you this weekend, but we haven't seen each other in a very long time. I've got some available time this spring. Do you think it might be possible to follow up then? By then, maybe we can bring home some speckled trout. What do you say? Yeah, we can sure try. I really appreciate you guys. Maybe I will be in a better frame of mind then, Charlie answered as Claire came up behind him and wrapped her arm around Charlie's back. Thanks for coming, guys, Claire spoke to the group. I do hope you can make a follow-up trip soon. As his friends started down the road, Claire turned to Charlie. Do you want to talk about it? Not really, Charlie answered. They meant well, but there's really nothing anyone can do to ease the struggle. Right now, I think I need to go inside and lie down for a bit. Peaches and Spirit, December 16th, 2017, Saturday morning. Spirit was a beautiful chestnut sorrel, gifted with a fiery spirit that personified her name. She was Jessie's horse, born on her 16th birthday in 2000, and she had survived the fire at Shiloh in 2013. Charlie had not slept much the night before. The financial stress, combined with the physical pain, had yielded many sleepless nights. This night was slightly different, as Jessie's horse, Spirit, was due to foal at any moment. Jessie's oldest child, Noah, was now 10 years old, and none of Charlie's grandchildren had been able to witness the birth of a new foal on the ranch. The same was true for Benji, who was still living with them after his mother disappeared more than 2 years earlier. Charlie hoped they would not be in school when the foal was born. It was a cool, clear morning with temperatures in the low 30s. Unable to sleep, Charlie went out to the stable that his friends had helped to rebuild after the fire. Seeing Spirit's condition, he knew the time was right. Returning to the house, Charlie whispered to his sleeping bride, "It's time. Let's get the kids." One by one, Charlie's sleepy-eyed grandchildren crawled out of bed and threw on their play clothes and their warm weather coats to watch and welcome the new foal into this world. Caleb's twin daughters, Leah and Abby, were 8 years old. They couldn't stop asking questions. Claire and Charlie patiently walked them through the miracle of God's creation and how he had equipped Spirit for this moment. "Grandma," Leah asked Claire, "is this Spirit's first baby?" "Oh, no, sweetheart," Claire answered. "Her first foal was named Peanut, and he belonged to Uncle Wes. Gypsy was born in 2007, and she was Aunt Lucy's horse." Charlie had managed to ignore the pain and the stress of the past 4 years as he enjoyed watching the children of his children eagerly await the miracle unfolding in front of them. Claire slipped her arm around her husband. I love seeing them like this. I wish Jesse and Kayla were here to experience this with them. Jesse loved that horse, Charlie responded. I don't know how God works these things, but I truly believe Jesse's here with us this morning, watching her beautiful horse and her two beautiful children. Charlie choked back a tear. As the girls continued their chatter, little Noah remained strangely quiet. Instead, his eyes were fixed on the little filly that was making her way into the world. Noticing the expression on Noah's face and the tears making their way down his cheek, Charlie put his arms around him. Hey, little man, what do you think? Why the tears? Granddaddy, Noah quietly responded. That's Mama's horse. She sure is, Charlie replied. She really loved Spirit, didn't she? Yes, sir, Noah answered. I think she will be very happy to see this, don't you? Without a doubt, Charlie answered, as the newborn foal struggled to stand up on her wobbly legs. Look at her. She looks like she already wants to run, doesn't she? I love you, Granddaddy. I wish Mama was here. Noah's voice was shaking. Me too, Noah, Charlie answered. I miss your mom every day, but I do believe she is here with us right now. She sees you, me, Grandma, and Spirit too. Granddaddy, what should we name her? Noah asked. I don't know, Charlie responded. Did you have something in mind? Could we call her Peaches? Noah asked. I suppose we could, Charlie answered. Any particular reason for that name? Don't you remember, Granddaddy? Noah inquired. My mama loved peaches and always wished we could grow them here. Charlie laughed. Oh, yes, I certainly remember. I had to tell her many times that it's hard to grow peaches in Kansas. Let's see what the girls think. You want to? Charlie directed his question to the girls. Hey, girls, Noah thinks we ought to name her Peaches. What do you think? Hannah responded with an enthusiastic, That's a great name. Abby and Leah echoed her response. Good morning, Peaches, Grandma Claire announced to the new filly. Welcome to your new family. As they stepped away from the children, Charlie looked at Claire. Have you called Ben yet? I know we're getting behind on our vet bills, but... Claire interrupted. Ben said he would be over this morning. Charlie, Ben's not going to cut us off. He is a good friend. He will continue to work with us. I know, Charlie answered. I just hate taking advantage of our friendship. He has a family to take care of too, you know. As the afternoon wore on, Charlie began to reflect on the day that Spirit came into the world. With their 5 grandchildren occupied with the birth of the new foal, Charlie and Claire took their positions on the fence outside the barn. Claire had a smile on her face as she managed a quiet laugh. What's got you laughing this afternoon? Charlie asked. Let me guess. You're thinking about a certain little girl's 16th birthday. Am I right? It was a very special day, Claire confirmed. While other little girls would be thinking about boys and driver's licenses, our own sweet 16-year-old girl was so excited to watch Spirit make her way into this world. Claire answered. Jessie. Charlie could barely breathe her name without losing it. With a short pause, he got his words out. God broke the mold when he made that girl. She was anything but ordinary. You gave her your speech about taking responsibility for her new friend, but she was way ahead of you, wasn't she? Claire asked. Boy, was she, Charlie answered. Jessie took such good care of that horse. I never had to say another word to her. Then she gave the same speech to Wes and Lucy when Peanut and Gypsy were born. Claire laughed. Always the big sister. I remember the look on Jessie's face when she found out that Spirit survived the fight. Charlie's voice trailed off. How I wish you were here, Charlie whispered. I would love to hear her say the same thing to her own son today. I remember, Charlie continued, that afternoon after Spirit was born. Jessie and I took a ride up to the top of the hill. She put her arms around my neck and told me that I was the best dad in the world. Even if it wasn't true, those are the words every father lives for. Charlie began to choke up. You old sentimental cowboy, Claire chided him. That little girl had you wrapped around her little finger from the first day she entered this world. I can't deny that, Charlie answered. Now we have the bittersweet job of caring for her little boy and girl and the horse she loved so much. If you saw the look in Noah's eyes, Claire remarked, you could see his mom's eyes watching the foal come into this world. The bank. February 19th, 2018, Monday, 9:30 a.m. Mike Tucker was president of Riley State Bank. Charlie and his dad had known Mike since he was a young assistant branch manager years before. Good morning, Charlie, Mike began. I know you and Claire have been through a challenging time over the past few years. The last thing I want to do is make things more difficult for you. Mike, Charlie interrupted, you have been more than gracious with us over the past few years. You haven't put any pressure on us of principal payments on the notes, and you were good enough to help us fund the materials to rebuild the barn and the cost to repair our house from the tornado damage. But I also know that you have a bank to run. Charlie, Mike answered, we are not calling the note, but the board is putting pressure on me to get some movement on the note. I've talked them into giving you a few weeks to present us a plan for making some significant reductions on the note. The note is still secured by the land, Charlie responded. The value is more than enough to cover any losses if we don't recover. That is true. The only problem with that, Mike answered, is that we get pressure from auditors and bank examiners for what they call collateral-based lending. The ranch is not producing adequate cash flow, and your credit rating has dropped. I get the picture. Charlie held up his hand. I don't have any grounds to object. You have been very kind. Your board needs a payment plan. Can you be more specific? How much time do I have? And how soon do I need to make a payment? I think I can get them off our backs if you can come up with $10,000 to $15,000 by the end of April. How does that sound? Mike answered. That's going to be tough. Charlie shook his head. But I really do understand. I will get with Claire. She's a smart one. And see what we can do to put something together. I do appreciate it, Mike. As they got up to end the meeting, Mike shook Charlie's hand. I didn't think to ask about the skin thing. Is it getting better at all? Not really, Charlie answered. I've learned to manage. Sometimes it burns and itches so much I want to run out in the field and scream. You know that I'm praying for you and Claire. I've known you guys for a long time. As Charlie walked out, he turned to Mike. Look, Mike, I am sincerely thankful for your friendship. You have been good to us. Take care. As he returned to the ranch, Claire waited for him on the front porch. Well, did it go like you expected? In all honesty, it was much better than I expected, but not as good as I had hoped. We can sit down together and put together a plan. You can use your magic to make this work. We will do the best we can, Claire answered. Don't forget, Billy and the boys are coming here on Friday for a follow-up fishing trip. I nearly forgot, Charlie responded. Eli is coming into town as well. I might try to talk him into going with us. Instead of going to Willie's Creek, I think it might be best to stay on the ranch, a little closer to home. Cricket's Creek has some pretty good fishing this time of year.
That concludes part 5 of Charlie's story. We will have part 6, which will come up next. It's called Cricket's Creek. Thank you for listening.